Okay, well, good evening. It's now 7 p.m. or for me, for my 30 years in the Navy, 1900. We'll call the SELCO meeting for September 23rd open. First off, I'd like to welcome all you folks to our meeting. You are combined over the past 40 or 50 years of having meetings. You've exceeded the sum total of the number of people we've ever had at a meeting. Oh, is there one time?
Yes. When on the cable they wanted the Asian channel.
Oh, okay.
And then we had a show of force.
So it's and we got the Asian channel on board.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so that
they came in and said, "Look at all of this. We want that mission. We got it."
Okay. Well, other than that, so welcome. Tonight, we have an agenda that will stay pretty close to. The first order of business is because it's the start of our year, is that we'll have an election of officers for the SELCO Commission. I'm going to try to. Mike's coming.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. So I will defer that, and I think we'll put that aside. And the next thing on the agenda is your presentation. So why don't we do that? Because this young lady may last, but I'm not sure the little one will. So I'll turn this over to you. It's your floor. Oh, by the way, there is a reminder, this is not an open hearing. This is a presentation, and if we've avoided some questions, or some banter that comes about, that's fine. We're pretty cordial about it. We're not going to spank you for anything, if you want to something, but the bottom line is it's not an open hearing. Thank you.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much to the SELCO Commission for allowing us to come present information on EMFs and how the risks and concerns that some citizens have around some of the efforts that align with that. Namely, there's the 5G rollout, small cell infrastructure, which has been on the SELCO committee minutes, where you're discussing the permitting process for that now. So that's a relevant topic. And then there's also the smart meter, $3.4 million smart meter replacement project. And that's also a concern to many about having smart meters, so we'll talk about that. And then there's also, I had on that third just about wireless in general. I know SELCO has a Wi-Fi service that they're rolling out to more customers, so this is relevant to that as well. I have myself and Cece here tonight. I'll let her introduce herself once I'm done, just kind of introduce the topic. So just first, a little bit intro on the 5G topic. 5G is the next generation of cell phone infrastructure, yet it's categorically different than its predecessors. So everybody's used to having 4G, starting on the 3G, but it's not as simple. It creates a major increase in change in the type of wireless radiation to which we're all being exposed without consent, whether we use the service or not. 5G builds on existing infrastructure and in addition uses extremely high millimeter wave frequencies of 24 gigahertz or more. These 5G signals don't travel far, so antennas will be installed approximately every 2 to 10 homes in residential neighborhoods. And 5G will increase our wireless radio frequency radiation exposure on a 24/7, 365-day basis. I kind of wanted to get in because that is a question around maybe every 2 to 10 homes. So it's really about, now you see cell towers, could be a mile away, or you barely see them, maybe see them in a soccer field or in a, some other destination. But if what they're planning out for this is something these can't travel that far, so there'll be more of them, a lot more of them. And the 2 to 10 homes, that kind of comes from many sources, but one was the Texas Wireless Summit in 2016, where AT&T outlined a vision for 5G networks. And Mr. Gosh, who was the director of wireless communications at AT&T Labs, said that it's plentiful, but it's difficult to use the 5G wavelength. He said that due to noise limitations, power amplifiers are less efficient in millimeter wave networks than any in the lower bands. And the solution, he said, is to place cell sites very close together. How close together? If you want to use them and deliver 100 megabits per second, you have to have the sites like 200 meters apart maximum, 100 meters for autonomous vehicles. So they were in Texas, so they said a city block in Austin is 200 to 250 meters. So you're talking about several small cells deployed every block to support this 100 megabits per second that we need. To put that in perspective, a football field is approximately 100 meters. So that would mean a small cell tower, probably about every football field in length. So that's what we kind of depending on how far your house is apart, maybe a more rural town, having 2 houses, Shrewsbury's a little more dense, or if you can imagine that. My neighborhood is like a quarter mile, so I could imagine needing 1 or 2, just in my neighborhood. There is a viable alternative, so we know this isn't SELCO putting in 5G. We're happy with SELCO's direction in talking about deploying fiber and hard wiring, which is really the viable alternative. It's viable and safer alternative than this kind of ubiquitous wireless juggernaut that's put wireless everywhere so that every device is connected. You see a wireless small cell tower within eyesight. So wired internet has significant advantages over wireless in that it's more reliable, more secure for hacking, more energy efficient, faster, essentially radiation free. So called, like, instead of 5G, safe G communities, right? So there is an alternative where you can be deploying fast internet connections without necessarily having. And one of the things I did, I also went on the Verizon website before this meeting, and on their website they had, you go to just 5G on Verizon, and it shows how 5G home networks work. And right at the top it says, first is a wireless node, a cell site in your neighborhood creates a 5G signal. So here they are right on the Verizon site for 5G saying it's in your neighborhood, and then that they were trying to say that that's going to provide Wi-Fi for everybody in the neighborhood, and that would go to their router, et cetera. So that's just a little a primer on that we think is a viable alternative. And then there's also smart meters, and smart meters, today we already have kind of AMI or automatic readers. So you can think of them as kind of like a simple step towards that. So we already, there's actually, Worcester had a smart meter pilot project that didn't go very well because the business case was a problem. So it's not only health concerns. When we went to present to the Board of Health, we also saw that there's a business case concerns, right? That they come in and say this is going to, provide this benefit or that benefit. But we're really going to look at it because it wasn't necessarily the case when they looked at it. Because they said, well, geez, you already put these automatic readers up there, so we can drive a truck by it. So it's not really that much savings. So they had to justify the cost. You're talking billions of dollars to replace things that may or may not be ready to be out of a flight of service. So we want to talk about that a little bit. And one of the things I think is relevant is if we look at the pipeline discussion. We talk about these like the big energy sector, right? Coming in with the pipeline at one time in Shrewsbury, and we kind of said we don't have a choice, right? The town pretty much said whatever the federal government says, our hands are tied. And the Eversource and Spectra seem like Enbridge, these big billion-dollar companies are coming in saying you have to do this. Otherwise, the residents get freezing in the winter. You're going to run out of gas, and you'll be freezing in the winter, so you need this pipeline, right? If you don't, then within 5 years, we're going to have to shut off gas to Shrewsbury's new customers. So they kind of made these big claims, which you'll probably hear in the telecom side is going to come and say, well, you need 5G, you need it, you need it, you need it, be behind. But we should be vigilant in trying to, trust but verify, really, because what ended up happening was, it's almost 5 years from the time they said that with the pipeline, and we're not out of gas yet. And actually what I did was right after that, after all that kind of rigmarole, I had the town manager reach out to Eversource and ask them, well, the pipeline's not coming, so we better be prepared for when the gas stops. And they replied and said, we're not planning on having any moratorium on gas for Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury's all set. We'll work it out. So in the end, it didn't, so I just want to put that because just because we have these big industries coming in, we've got to if we had just asked that question up front, what's your plan B on that case? So I think in this case, it would be nice if we could do that as well. So.
Have you read the regulation?
Which one?
The FCC's regulation on 5G small cell deployments.
I have not read the full one yet, but do you want us to finish first? Or you want us to,
sure, go ahead.
I just didn't know whether you
Yeah,
wanted
no,
to
that'd be great.
So that's just in time to hand it off to CC, because we already presented the Board of Health, and we did a big talk on health concerns of wireless, and there's a lot of evidence coming out, and that's available for everybody to see. So I wanted to focus a little bit on these today, as well as have a refresher, because a lot of times it's the first people are hearing about some of these health issues and some of the evidence behind that. So I think we're going to do a little recap on that, bring everybody up to speed, and talk about what other towns are doing as some alternatives.
All right, thank you, Brian. My name is CC Doucette from Ashland. And up until about 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't have any idea that there were any concerns for wireless technology. I used to run our local education foundation in Ashland, and we kept hearing about the 21st century classroom. and how our children were going to need to have all this new wonderful wireless equipment to succeed in life. So we jumped in and did fundraisers. We got iPads, we got Chromebooks, we got smartboards, we got minis, we got Apple TVs, we got wireless infrastructure. And then I got together with a girlfriend at book group one night who's an electrical engineer, and she was reading a book called Sept. And in that book, it was indicating that there are biological risks to all wireless technology. So I'm a technical and professional writer by trade, and so if you do a cursory search, is wireless safe, you will indeed find studies that show no harm. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but those are by and large industry-funded studies done under conditions that would deliberately show no evidence of harm. But once you get past that, you will get to things like the Bioinitiative Report, which is a compendium of thousands of studies from all over the world that show very clear evidence of harm. So this is just the cover page so you get a visual on what it looks like. And when we look at the table of contents, it says evidence to damage and sperm reproduction. And that's what got me on my feet, because I went in and I read the non-industry funded peer-reviewed published studies, and they show that they've taken male human sperm and exposed it to a laptop with the antennas turned on, and it changed the DNA, which is the roadmap to grow a proper little one of these. It slowed the motility of the sperm, and it caused far fewer sperm to be viable in just 4 hours of exposure. And I had just bought my then 15-year-old daughter a laptop. And where is she using it but right on top of her reproductive organs? Subsequent to that, in 2012, when I was looking at this, Kaiser has put a large study that showed like a 3- or 4-fold increase in miscarriages for pregnant women who are using wireless devices around the fetus. So that's the sperm and reproduction. There's evidence that children are far more vulnerable. They're not just little people. Their very systems are still under construction. And if we look at this diagram, on the left, we're holding a cell phone up to an adult's head, and that's how far the radiation penetrates the brain. In the middle is a 10-year-old child, and on the right is a 5-year-old child. And you'll see the younger the person, it goes almost all the way across, absorbing through the brain of the child. So, and it goes on. I know we don't have much more time, but Dr. Martha Herbert founded the Autism Lab at Mass General, and she sees huge correlations between what we know scientifically happens with microwave radiation exposure, which is what this is. Our invisible wireless signals are going back and forth in a 2-way radio frequency microwave signals.
Just on your time.
Yeah.
I just would tell everyone here that I advise the commission members to watch the Board of Health. We made a very thorough half-hour plus meeting, and that is available on SMC's website. You can get a link and watch in its entirety.
Okay, great, and I hope everybody will. Most importantly today is that the U.S. National Toxicology Program last November concluded a $30 million study that they've been doing for decades. They went in expecting to prove that this technology that ran cell phones, which now runs that wireless router in every wireless device you have, they went in to prove that it was safe. And instead, they did an unprecedented 3-day peer review with international experts at the National Institutes for Health. And at the end of that, they put out their report that stated clear evidence of tumors, cancer, and DNA damage. And clear evidence is the highest public warning that we can give the public. But we never heard of that in our mainstream media. And that was one of my missing pieces when I started doing the deep dive on this. I'm like, if this is as bad as the science is showing, why don't we know and who's got our backs on this? So then in 2015, Harvard's Law School Center for Ethics put out this 59-page report called Captured Agency, how the Federal Communications Commission is dominated by the industries it was in the briefcase. And for some of you, that might be the same as big tobacco, big pharma, big chemical. It's the revolving door with our government agencies. And this is an excellent investigative report on how, like Ajit Pai, who's the FCC chairman now, was a senior lawyer for Verizon. Tom Wheeler, who stepped down when Ajit Pai came in, was the head of the CTIA, the Wireless Industry Association, and prior to that was the head of the Cable Association. So He actually did studies back in the 90s when the first oncologist made the connection that his patient died of these unusual tumors on the side of her head that happened to line up with her cell phone. They got on Larry King Live and reported that, and stock prices started plummeting. So Tom Wheeler said, well, that's horrible, let us do the research. And they hired George Carlin, who was a senior scientist. He put in place 200 scientists. They did the studies for years and concluded that this does look to be carcinogenic, and children are more vulnerable. Back in the 90s, and instead of invoking the precautionary principle, they got the Telecom Act. They lobbied hard, they wrote the law, and that's the measures of things that you're referring to, where you feel like your hands are tied at the municipal level. But you're not. So we have senior advisors to the World Health Organization saying we now know enough to move this from group 2B, possible human carcinogen, up to group 1, carcinogenic to humans. And as we know, public policy can take years to catch up to this, but our children don't have that kind of time to wait. So in Ashland, when our public schools started to look at this, we became the first public school district in the United States to even have this little sign hanging in all of our classrooms that says, turn those things off, turn off the Wi-Fi if you're not using it, because it's continually pulsing radiation at our staff and our children, whether there's any device trying to make a handshake or not. And certainly turn all those devices off when we're not using them. And in the manufacturer's fine print, it says right there, don't ever put it near your body or you may receive the SEC limits regarding radiation exposure. And I think it was that legal fine print that got our schools to stand up, because the industry actually does not have insurance on this. Lloyd's of London, Swiss Re, and others have already walked away from this, so we have to be particularly vigilant when we're signing contracts with industry to look at that and say, okay, so the industry doesn't have insurance, so what does that do? Leave us as a town, leave us as a school system vulnerable to legal risk in addition to the biological risk. And with the schools, the New York Times did a series last fall on what the Silicon Valley executives are doing. And the Silicon Valley executives are sending their children to schools with no technology, right? That digital divide is not what we thought it was. They're just pushing that into our schools as fast as they can with their 21st century classroom. And they're actually having their nannies sign contracts that there will be no screens around their children. And then they did another one saying human contact is now a luxury good. Screens used to be for the elite, now avoiding them is a status symbol. So in Southborough, there was a federal lawsuit because children were becoming sick from the industrial strength mesh Wi-Fi networks. For the first time in American courts, they acknowledge there is biological harm at the non-thermal, non-ionizing level of radiation. And as far as 5G goes, oh, and I don't know if anybody caught the Chicago Tribune last month, but they went in and investigated. So if the manufacturer's fine print say keep this at a distance from your body, what happens when you use it like we all use it? It can exceed the FCC limits up to 11 times the radiation, which, by the way, were never safety tested. We have thousands of studies today showing it is not biologically safe. So 5G, we have small cell antennas going in all over Boston. We have Natick as a test city. We have Rockton as a test city. And as you guys may already be seeing, the industry is just pushing this out into our communities. And it literally does mean putting a cell tower inside our neighborhoods, like every 2 to 12 houses. There are people out in Sacramento, which is another test city, who woke up and within a month their children were crashing. After a couple weeks, their children were crashing, and they couldn't figure out what was going on, why they weren't getting better. They're like, what changed? And they went, what is that pole outside the girl's bedroom? And sure enough, they did the research. They moved the girls out of that bedroom. They created distance. They put shielding materials up. But they can't stay in that house because their kids are now sick. And that's what happens with the utility smart meters too. Water, gas, electric, solar, pulsing, microwave radiation, many times a minute, sometimes many times a second, through our homes without any regard for safety. Very common symptoms when people become sensitive to that are headaches, nosebleeds, nausea, dizziness, anxiety. Insomnia is huge. And it's all because we're being bombarded with these invisible, silent pulses of microwave radiation. And we became the first library in the nation to put an acoustimeter on loan, which allows us to see and hear this invisible toxin. So you can borrow, well, residents of Ashland can borrow it, take it home, and just start gathering your data. What are our exposures? So in this room, if there were no signals, we wouldn't be getting this. If it was in the green, that's at the level where the science is still discovering what the biological risks are, because there has never been a safe level of microwave radiation in the scientific literature. When it goes into yellow, that's where those microwave sickness symptoms start coming up, right? And when we get into the red, we have literally thousands of studies all over the world, peer-reviewed published journals, showing this is linked to child and adult cancers. It's linked to infertility, and we are down 50% as a nation on our sperm count right now. And where are we all putting our wireless devices?
How much of that,
Autism.
how much of that is background radiation that you measure?
This is radio frequency radiation. So when you talk about background radiation, that we're like, I don't know, 10 to the 18th power higher than where we should be, right? This is all man-made radiation. So other countries are already pulling the stops on 5G. Brussels in Belgium has put a moratorium up. Parts of Rome, parts of Israel, in Geneva, where the World Health Organization is, right? They don't want it here. They don't want to be the guinea pigs for an industry that's forcing this stuff into our communities. Out near Silicon Valley, they've also put up a moratorium. San Mateo. At the federal level, Richard Blumenthal is a longtime attorney general and prosecutor out of Connecticut. There was a new commissioner at the SEC, Brendan Carr, who was indicating that 5G is safe. He, Blumenthal, and Congresswoman Anna Eshoo sent a formal letter to the FCC saying, please send us the peer-reviewed published studies that you have showing this is harmless. And they had nothing. They had a commerce committee at the federal level. The industry was there. They said, please tell us how much you have invested in ensuring this is safe before it gets rolled out to the public. And they knew of no funding. And yet they're putting it inside our neighborhoods right now. There are others, Peter DeFazio on the Transportation Commission. There's efforts to do the OTARD rule revision. That's over-the-air radio waves. So if you live in a neighborhood where you don't have street poles where they can put these small cells up, they're gonna go to your neighbor and say, hey, we'll give you some money, can you put it on your roof? So even if you choose safe technology, there's no way we're gonna get away from this unless we stop it at the town level. And there's good news on that front too. As you said, the industry leads you to believe that you have no recourse. The town of Burlington, Massachusetts has been a national leader on this. They formed a small cell committee when Verizon came in with 7 applications and said, here's 7, but wait, it could turn out to be 14 or it could be 30, thinking the town would be really excited about all this free revenue for putting wireless communication facilities in the public access mode. But Burlington did their due diligence. They hired a lawyer who specializes in telecom law. And they put in place a small G policy that takes care of traditional things like it has to be ADA compliant. You can't put things in the middle of the sidewalk that are going to block passageway for somebody in a wheelchair. They said things like it has to blend in with the environment, while Verizon said some of those small cells can't be painted, so that was an interesting thing. And they said that if you put this in our community, you cannot just come in and drop and run like you're prone to doing. You have to come back every year and recertify that this technology is still viable in your community. And we don't have the expertise on staff to oversee that, so we, the town of Burlington, are going to assess the vendors a fee. And when the Verizon lawyer heard that last fall, they said, well, we don't want to set precedent for any kind of an annual research or a fee, so we withdraw our applications. So don't be conned into thinking you have no recourse. Massachusetts has 19 bills filed this session to address man-made radiation, public health, and the environment. 3 of those bills are up for public hearing tomorrow, and I have spent the last 2 days reading testimony upon testimony of Massachusetts residents who have already become ill when those utility smart meters went in, when the Wi-Fi came into their house, when they had a cell tower show up outside of their house. We've also gotten testimony from doctors, from scientists. There's a state rep in Montana that wrote in for our bills because he's trying to get that FCC Telecom Act Section 704 overturned so that we have legal recourse for health and environmental. I was so honored to help with a bill in New Hampshire that has now passed into law to examine the health and environmental impacts of 5G. This is a first on that. Oregon just passed a bill into law that gets their Department of Public Health to look at the independent, non-industry funded science, advise the public, and especially advise our schools. So there are a lot of things happening out there that we just don't get in mainstream media because in big tobacco fashion, like Harvard's Captured Agency report tells us, if you can suppress evidence of harm, if you can come up with your own studies showing no harm, if you can get the laws written to support your corporate interests, and if you can keep selling the public your products with no safety information, they will keep buying it. So that's why we don't hear about it in mainstream media, but you don't have to look very far at all to get to the peer-reviewed published scientific studies. So don't listen to anybody's spin on this. Don't take my word for it. Get in there and start looking at this for yourself and stand up. And I am just so impressed to see everybody in here tonight because this is your town. These are your children. And we already are at epidemic proportions for anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation like we've never seen in our schools before. And we have done this to ourselves. So it's time to turn this around. We're having these conversations with the Department of Education. We testified with the Department of Public Utilities because that smart meter grid program with National Grid was, as Brian said, very fraudulent. They went way over budget. And then they wanted to turn around and make the ratepayers pay for it. They put these radiation transmitting devices on our homes with no informed consent, and in true environmental justice fashion, they go into a predominantly underprivileged community, put their toxic products in, and then say, hey, look, it worked right here. We're gonna roll it out across the state. And they're doing that in Rhode Island and New York, saying, look how great it was in Boston. Look how much it worked in Boston. So we've got our work cut out for us, but we're not alone. There are people all over the world working on this. The European Academy of Environmental Medicine already has guidelines to train doctors on how to treat for microwave sicknesses. I was so honored this month to run policy panels at the first U.S. conference to give continuing medical education credits to doctors and nurses and firefighters and scientists, and you know, it's happening now. California already passed a cell phone fact sheet. It took a lawsuit to get it released because it was written in 2009 and the industry suppressed it. But this came out at the end of 2017 and we all should have heard about that. But once again, our media doesn't report on it. I have worked with the Department of Public Health here. They have 4 fact sheets on EMFs that should be given to the public immediately. We were told in 2016 they would be out in 3 months. It's been 3 years, and they have yet to see the light of day. The Globe reported on it in January, and a bunch of people called in to say, please release those fact sheets. And instead of releasing the actual scientific peer-reviewed studies, they threw up a cheap thing on our government radiation control website that basically says, oh, there's no clear evidence of harm. Meanwhile, we had given them the clear evidence as detailed by our own $30 million government study, so I can't tell you what's going on there. But as I got into looking at this, I got in way over my head, and I couldn't remember where I saw useful information. So as a tech writer, I created a very simple research repository that I invite every one of you, go in and pound around in it, use it as your launch point, to try and make it easy to understand. There's a page for smart meters. There's a page for 5G and the Internet of Things. I've done a page for municipal leaders to try and see it from your perspective. What are you up against? How can we help you get through that and get to safe technology? So the message is not no technology, it's safe technology. And we knew how to do that 10 years ago. You just run it through an Ethernet cable to the premises. And that's what the industry promised us. They were going to bring faster speeds to the premises, and then when wireless became so highly affordable for them and profitable, we took a left turn and started letting them put up wireless nodes all over the place. So fine, run the fiber or the cable backbone through the street, but bring it right up to the building, which is where you can hook inside your house to an Ethernet cable. And then all you need are little adapters. You can use a Thunderbolt adapter to hardwire your MacBook, right? You can use a Lightning adapter, the RJ45, to actually hardwire an iPhone. And kids don't use the phone anymore anyway. They're just texting and going online. You can do all that through a hardwired connector to the back of your network. It's not rocket science, but we've been sold on all Wi-Fi all the time. There are other adapters. Check out the Pluggables website or others, and you can find them for most devices, but don't buy anything until you've tested it. So the message tonight is not no technology, right? The Mediterranean country of Cyprus has already put out a 16-point fact sheet. You guys could take that in your town and get it out to the public and say, here's what one country's already doing. Perhaps most appropriate for tonight's conversation is this policy book called Reinventing Wireless. It outlines all the problems with wireless that Brian told us, not only the health, but the speed. Wi-Fi is pretty crummy technology if we're honest with ourselves. It falls apart all the time, it's slow, it's not safe, your data's flying around out there. It's a huge security risk because it can be hacked and taken down by somebody with like a $20 application at the curb. So there are, and your property value. Cell towers go up, real estate studies show us property values drop 20%, and that's your tax revenue base, right? So we gotta be careful.
Is that happening in Boston to the property values? The property values are going, because they're deploying these
They
5G
are.
small cells everywhere. So are those property values going down?
I would guess it's probably too soon to have any statistics around that yet, but as a nation, that's what happens when somebody wants to sell a house that's now got a cell tower on it. But listen, there are great ways to learn about this. I've had the privilege of building a nonprofit out of Europe with some of the world's leading scientists and doctors. It's called wirelesseducation.org, and we have distilled this into a half-an-hour course. There's one for schools and families, there's one for the workplace. We can literally train everybody in a half an hour. It's not rocket science, but we need the privilege of having the facts. And there's an excellent film in Shrewsbury Public Library. It was actually the first to pre-screen this back in 2017 before it was released to the public. It's called Generation Zapped. And you will hear directly from world-leading scientists and doctors and public health experts on why this is a huge concern and why we should all be putting this at the top of our priorities on our very busy lives, because I didn't see this coming either, and I would really rather not be doing meetings like this. But once you know, how can you not get out there and start protecting our children and our communities? So, there's also, for those of you with child age or school-age children or grandchildren, we had this incredible forum right here at the Shrewsbury Public Library this spring. Dr. Martha Herbert she's a Harvard pediatric neurologist who started that autism lab at Mass General. She came and told us all the neurotoxicity and other things that this is doing to us. We had Dr. David Carpenter, who has been a World Health Organization advisor. We had Theodore Storado from the Environmental Health Trust. We had Dr. Ron Melnick, who designed that $30 million U.S. government study. He's retired now and at liberty to speak the truth. So this is there. All of our schools should be tuning into this, and we should not have started another school year with all these wireless access points just bombarding our children with toxic radiation. Talk to your school nurses. Headaches, nosebleeds, nausea, dizziness. They're asking parents for more tissues for nosebleeds and barfing in the classroom than they have ever needed in their classroom. So this is happening on our time right now. And you guys have an incredible opportunity to start getting ahead of it and protecting your people. Thank you.
Any comments?
No, I have questions, but I
Yeah.
would let you guys.
So I go home and I shut off my router, and I take your machine, and I turn it on, and it still maxes out because 7 other neighbors have routers and they're all jammed. So are you proposing that we set some standard in the town that you have to have emissions checked on every house in town?
That would be lovely if you can swing it, but.
Well, you throw that in this proposal, it'll never get elected, it'll never get voted.
I know.
But
Start where
those
you
are
are.
part of the issues that, you know.
It is. Start where you are and just start thinking, what can I control? Probably the most important thing you can do tonight is get good sleep. Because if we don't get good sleep, our body can't properly cellular and regenerate.
I think that's a fair gateway, segue into, what is it that you want us to do?
Hardwiring. Promote
Okay, so-
hardwiring.
But that's
and
what we
fight
do.
as hard as you, I know, cable's
We
great,
love
right?
hardwire. I
But
will
don't
say-
be
Matter of fact, we prefer to
wireless
Verizon doesn't come in with 5G.
I
We
know.
love hardwire.
Yeah.
Because right now the FCC
That's our-
says we can't stop them.
That's our
But-
core
Get
Get
business.
creative. I would suggest you give Jim Tigas a call in Burlington. He is a selectman there who headed up the small cell.
I think we've talked with Burlington.
Yeah, Mike Lawson from Concord has been in touch recently. There are towns all over Massachusetts. You guys should not take this sitting down. You
Yeah,
should
we
be
know.
using your influence to get in there and make the FCC change those regulations.
Like,
Yeah,
Just
that-
a
wait a minute,
couple comments on the three issues that you brought up. We do, in 2014, we stopped selling Wi-Fi. And that was primarily because there were too many Wi-Fi, or we would stop servicing it because customers were all buying their own Wi-Fi routers and then asking us for help, and we couldn't manage 25 different brands of Wi-Fi. But the demand for Wi-Fi became so strong, and the help desk got so many calls, that we studied the issue, and we came up with a very state-of-the-art Wi-Fi router that's built by a company called Calix. It's very powerful in terms of its functionality, and there is features in there that allow the customer portal to set certain controls. They can control what hours their children can use it. It can be turned up. You can turn it on and off through an on-off switch for both the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz signals. So our product allows for the customer to take control of his or herself or her home. and
Right,
how
but I
it-
think what they need is education because of that. So in my case, I didn't have anybody I could talk to for a couple of years when I was doing a deep dive on this. Once it finally sunk in that I need to protect my family, I replaced the decked cordless phones because that's like having my own cell tower. I hardwired everything in my home, but then I was still getting all this radiation from my triple play box, right? So I called up, it was Verizon for us at the time, and said, how do we get rid of that signal because we're choosing the faster, safer hardwire? They said, sit down at your computer, and I went, really? And they said, yeah. So I sit down at my computer, it gives me the IP address for that box that they put in my home, and they gave me login credentials, and then I just had to go into wireless settings, and as you said, there was the 2.4 gigahertz and then the 5 gigahertz antenna, and I just had to go off, apply. And then I went down to my utility closet where our box was, and after a couple of minutes, it disappeared. But then we switched to Comcast, because my husband saw a better deal. And so he said, we'd like to take you up on your offer, but my wife's gonna wanna be really clear that there's no radio frequency. And we said, no problem, we got that. So the guy comes in, the tech comes in, replaces our box from Verizon with the Comcast box. When he says he's all done, I go down with my measurement device, and it's off the charts. And I said, you got the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz, right? And he said, yeah, those are off. And I said, and I have heard that Comcast, and I don't know if others are doing that, they're putting public hotspots on your home's box to throw signal all the way out to the street so others can hook in, which by the way is using your electricity too, so it's pretty unconscionable. He says, well, I actually turned off the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz hotspot. And I said, so why is this going off the charts? And he said, I don't know. And he spent the better part of the day trying to figure it out, but his help desk got nowhere. He said, I'm coming back tomorrow with my supervisor. Meanwhile, that night I contacted a colleague in Silicon Valley who had mentioned that fifth antenna, and I didn't know what it was. Turns out that box we got was already outfitted with an antenna for, can anybody guess?
Public Wi-Fi.
No, that was the hotspots. This was for the home security system, which we don't even have a wireless home security system, but all 5 of those antennas were blaring at my family. Constantly, billions of cycles a second, on, looking for handshake.
Okay, so
So on the Wi-Fi, we do have that on-off switch for 2, 4, and 5.
Are those
I
the
can't-
only antennas you have?
No,
in there?
no, I think the whole industry is going towards public, all routers are being built with public Wi-Fi signals. And
Yeah,
then
so
we
they-
don't have the ability to turn that off.
Well, I
if it's
think
on
we
it.
need to take it back to our engineers and start having a safety conversation, and you guys can be leaders. You don't have to be followers. Get out there and build the stuff that's not regulated. This is not regulated. You can create safe technology, and you can come out ahead of the pack and educate your customers on it.
For 1,000 customers, it would be very expensive for us to hire engineers to build that type of product. But I know what you're saying.
Probably do it in a patch upgrade, maybe, who knows, ask them.
Yeah,
See
what-
if they
I
can
mean,
just do an upgrade
okay, well,
and
we've got,
turn off those antennas.
the time we had expended,
Yeah.
we're already 20 minutes over. Michael has some other comments about
Okay.
what you
Yeah,
said.
no, in terms of the AMI meters, we've looked into this, and we are about to sign a contract to deploy the AMR meters. We currently have AMR meters, and the AMI meter, in terms of what it will transmit, will be significantly less than the AMR. So it's going in the right direction.
It is, but the bottom line is there's no safe level of radio frequency radiation in the scientific literature. And the companies have told us that those things pulse a couple times a day. You get out there with a meter and you will see very differently. And that pulses through our homes. So now you're gonna be proposing electric, 1 meter, gas, another meter,
With my
water,
house.
another meter. But that's what the town is gonna wind up doing, right? And solar. You have to have a smart meter to have a solar system in today's world, right?
You have to have a different type of meter, but it's not, is it a smart
I've
meter?
actually been working with some of the
But
solar
the
companies.
solar itself, inverters connected to the solar array,
Actually,
they all have EMF.
I've gotten a couple of the solar companies to say in a contract that we will install this and we will disable the wireless signals and we will hardwire them to your home. Now we need to address the electricity that may come in with that, but.
It's the same with
it's doable.
batteries.
Yeah.
Batteries have EMF for car chargers in the home. Hybrid vehicles have more EMFs than gas-powered
And that
vehicles, so.
doesn't make it any safer,
Yeah.
that just means the innovation has caught on and they're pushing it out into the market with no safety testing. So let's just start where we are.
So I would say that, these meters are gonna pulse probably 83 seconds on a day that has, how many seconds? 86,400 seconds a day. They'll pulse. Right now, they're pulsing between every 7 and 30 seconds. So the frequency at which they'll pulse will be significantly reduced. It may not meet your standard, but it's a vast.
Well, why does it have to do that? If they only need to get our reading once a month, why isn't it pulsing once a month?
Because every day people move in and move out, and it has to do with reads.
But can't they just turn it on, turn it off, and somebody changes it?
I've had a-
But these are the questions, I mean, these are great thoughts, and these are the questions we need to be asking, because they have come in full tilt, everything, all the time.
But they also, in a green world, you're gonna want us to
No.
monitor peak electrical demand. And so you're gonna run into a problem where, on the one
Hardwire.
hand, you can hardwire it perhaps, but you're gonna have to still have the ability to bring it, bring it in, so.
Run it in through an Ethernet cable. Run it to your router. You can gather your data that way. You don't need radiation. And by the way, this is another dirty
Brings more
little
TV.
secret, is that wireless systems consume about 10 times more energy than hardwired systems. So when they talk about the green new economy, we presented it to Ed Markey when he did the town hall in Framingham. And when I handed him this book on reinventing wires, he said, oh yeah, I commissioned a study 20 years ago that found out this was a co-carcinogen. So they have known about this and they still let it go forward. So I will leave you guys with the hard
Oh,
copy
sure.
of reinventing wires.
I would just say on the
Send it out.
5G, while I appreciate what you say,
Mhm.
the FCC still has a very strict regulation.
But they're
And yes,
starting
we're
to
in the
have cracks
process.
in their armor.
Well, it's been appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court, as you know, in
Right, and
California.
that won.
And well, hasn't won yet, no.
No.
No, that has not, it hasn't been heard.
Okay, one of them in the Supreme
Yeah.
Court out in
No,
California
it has
was
not been
heard
heard.
to allow towns to have the autonomy to say,
No,
yeah.
you can't do that. We've hired Washington attorneys, we've hired high-cost Boston attorneys
I think
to
it
look at
actually-
this for us.
Something came out about a month ago.
No, it's not.
We know about that one.
Yeah,
Because
Well, I'll send
we
you
are
one.
on
Just
top of that
5G.
issue,
Yeah.
because my fear is, we like the wired line,
Right.
but guess what? We get a lot of complaints from people, or statements that you're a monopoly and you are creating barriers to entry. The last thing in the world I want to do is come across that SELCO is an obstructionist to 5G so that it can protect its own asset. I can't live in that world. We can't have our citizens saying that I and SELCO Commission is creating barriers to entry, especially when the regulation is so
But I think if you
strong.
get back and educate your population, you can stem those conversations by teaching them what safe technology looks like.
Well, I
Right?
don't-
All they're hearing is the spin from the industry. I want an autonomous
Yeah, no.
vehicle, right? An autonomous vehicle can only go as far as the next small cell tower. That's why they have to be everywhere, right? What good is a vehicle if you can't drive outside of Boston?
So I look at
They're putting
5G
everywhere.
as competition for our business.
Right?
But
Take 'em down.
I can't, no, we are not in that, we are a nonprofit.
Then do the next best thing.
We're not
Right.
anti-competitive, we can't be that way.
Then start working with your engineers on safety.
If that be the case, we should get out of the business.
I mean, I
Use
think
your
I just
voice.
want
We
to
step aside,
Yeah.
the void, leave the field by Verizon.
I mean, if I could, I just wanted to answer that, like, from a citizen's point of view, if you don't mind. I know you guys asked, like, what's the ask, right? So CC has all this great information.
That is the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken years for us to come to this, and I know, like, what happened was when I learned about this, I took the first step to say, well, let's go to Beals, the building Beal, right? We have all this information. I just wanted to present it to the Beals building committee to say, just hear this information, and there's a lot of concerned citizens, let's have a conversation about it. And they denied that request. They said, we don't want it, that we're not allowing you to present to the Beal building committee.
So this is
So
a
we
K
went
through 4 school,
K
right?
through 4 school. So I went to the Board of Health, and they allowed us to present, and that's why I'm thankful for the SELCO Commission doing the same as well. And it might just be, I mean, the Beal Building Committee has a lot on their hands, they have a short amount of time, they've got architects there, they've got big money, budgets to build, so I understand that they're short on time, but what I'd like to ask here is that it doesn't just not get discussed, or it doesn't pass, like, if we look at the pipeline, one of the things we did with the pipeline, we said, hey, we had 100 plus citizens that are concerned about the pipeline. And they said, well, there's nothing we can do, it's, federally driven and there's nothing we can do. So it never became another topic for any of the boards, other than what we brought as citizens forward. So I'm really trying to see if we can keep it as
I don't think they're
as
in
an
the
item
same
that-
legal framework, the two issues.
And maybe that's so, and that's why, I'm just trying to think, if there's a lot of detail, CC presented, and not even everything, presented so much detail tonight, that would be a shame if it just wasn't on old business, it didn't pick up smart meters and say, well, let's look at Hackensack District, Michael's bringing back information already based on some of these court cases.
Yeah, we would be reducing the RF by implementing smart meters.
Maybe, but you have to, if we look at the project, we have to say, well, how much it's gonna cost? $3 to $4 million. Let's look at that project. If, like, what Cece's saying is that it's still, let's measure that, like, trust but verify. Let's get a
Yes,
meter
sir.
and measure this.
But when you do that, Brian, you have to look at the cost in what's the incremental cost between a standard meter AMR and the AMI meter. And that, because you have to replace the meters, they have a shelf life. So some of our meters are coming up on.
Are there any analog meters?
No.
There's no
And we've asked,
Yeah.
we asked our consultant to find us an analog meter for those who may want to opt out of AMI, and they have yet to find.
They're available, we can show you where to get them. But the analog meter is the only safe meter, even with the AMI meters, where we're still doing drive-bys in the neighborhood to get the reading. Those are pulsing 24/7, and with any digital signal, there's an added risk that signal can hop on the wires and the pipes of your home and virtually create like an antenna on your home. So we've just done a cursory look at this, but there is far more concern here than meets the eye. And when you talk about economics, what are you gonna do about the economics of the health of your population? We've already got children falling apart like we have never seen before.
Can you connect that to a study
Is there a
she said that the
Absolutely.
throwing up in the nosebleeds and all
Did
that?
you-
Are
Yeah.
there direct connections to the?
Yeah,
There
I teach at the
are.
high school.
Is-
And the
is
American,
that-
are you familiar with the American Cancer Society's statement on it?
Yeah, they said that NTP study is paradigm shifting good science.
I haven't seen that in any of their literature. I'd love to
We
see
can
that.
see, we can show
Because
you.
on their website, it says inconclusive
Go and
Yeah.
look to see.
for humans.
And
Go in and
NIH
look to
too.
see where the funding comes from.
Yeah.
A lot of those groups are heavily funded by the industry. So you gotta know what questions to ask and where to look, and always come back to the peer-reviewed, published, independent science, not somebody's.
I hear what you're saying, but I always look at the American Cancer Society as a fairly independent,
But go look
objective
again,
body.
they're not that incredible.
Okay.
I'd like to say, as Cushman, I very much appreciate that you came and both of you and the group here. They certainly opened my eyes to the conversation and to learn more about it. I think that when we're discussing products, we're hearing lots of voices. You're one voice. And some of the voices are, I need more Wi-Fi, I need better speed, I need this, I need that. So I think we always have to balance all of them, all those voices, and decide how we run our business. And I'm glad that you guys came to include that fact.
And we talked earlier, Brian, about, instead of coming to our committees, what you really need to do is potentially go to, SMIC. I mean, you pay, if you have cable in your house, some of your money goes directly to the town to support SMC, your media channels that are free. You can make your whole show, and you can do as long as you want.
Yeah, you
and
can
have-
do an
and
entire-
do it-
We've done that
do
in a lot
it
of
in
communities,
each of the
I think.
areas, and then it'll play 24/7 on TV, as far as education goes.
Yeah, I do think it's about educating community.
It
I mean,
is.
we certainly opened our eyes, but unless our community is really demanding, those are real changes that are not competitive with the
Right.
business. And, if we don't compete, we become Verizon, we become Comcast, and now you're dealing with a national company, so it's a tough balance. when you're
Yeah,
describing it.
we're
It's
joining
not
the
as easy as it
conversation at a really good point in time, because the wheels are starting to come off the bus. When that Chicago Tribune article came out last month, that showed that holding a cell phone up to your head increases the radiation like 11-fold on what the FCC guidelines are.
Yeah,
There's already class
We
action
reached a point
lawsuits
where we
going
need to move on.
Right.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
It's
no,
great
we
stuff.
appreciate the
And,
time.
I do think you should do a,
TV show.
Yeah, seriously.
program,
Yeah.
and they're wonderful.
Yeah, we've done them in Northborough, we've done them in Pepperell, we've done them in Ashland.
It'll run and educate the community and.
That's right. And I think there's an appetite to do another screening of Generations Act in the community, which won Best Documentary at the October Film Festival, it's part of the United Nations Film Festival.
It's October 23rd.
So October
And you've
23rd
got-
at
at
the
the
library.
library.
And you'd be amazed at how many people will watch it 3 in the morning that don't have anything else to do. All of a sudden they
Right.
fall on it.
Right.
Well, I didn't watch this before, but all of a
Yeah,
sudden
we
they
can send you the
Yeah, but they
ratings.
might start
Yeah, we'll send you
sleeping.
we can tell you exactly how many TVs are watching it at any time.
You know what? Grab those statistics right now,
Yeah.
and as we educate your community, let's see who's sleeping
Well,
through the night.
you could,
Right? I mean, there's
You can go on, you can go on
measure.
right now to SMC, because all the shows are on YouTube, and it'll see how many views you have. It'll tell you right how many times it's been viewed.
No,
It just gives you an
seriously,
idea. But
people who turn this stuff off actually find that they start sleeping through the night again. Very often, children's behavior issues start going down when they're not central nervous system's not yet
I
jacked.
just worry that's all anecdotal and
Oh,
it's
no,
hard
no,
to.
no. And you would think that because you've never been privy to the science. There are literally thousands of studies, and when you go, here, I'll leave everybody with my business card. On the back of it is my research
Provide the board
repository.
of health with a list, right?
Yeah.
So they get a
Yeah,
copy
so
of
if I
it.
can just get the right address and,
We can send you what we sent the board of
so
health.
this is the little
studies.
nonprofit where literally
send
we've
it
got
to
the
me, Brian, I'll
training
forward
built. We can train anybody in a half an hour.
So my son lives in Sutton, and he's got more putting a cell tower behind his house, in the condo section, and he's just ballistic.
He should be.
What can we do to stop?
Get his neighbors educated and show up like you've shown up tonight. Right? And half hour. Anybody can go get level set with the facts and then sit down and have an intellectual conversation about what to do. So use the
I looked at
resources.
the Navigate.
Yeah.
Silicon Navigate, but the focus of the article wasn't at all what you kind of implied. The focus of the article was addiction to screens.
Right.
And it didn't mention at all anything about radiation.
But they
So-
know. But that is like their little thing. Oh, we'll give them this, we'll talk about
But
the
I
blue
worry-
light in the media.
But I worry, it discredits me for you a little bit, because I worry that when you make statements, and you talk about that Navigate article, it didn't sink at all when I read it. And now I'm like, well, which of those other things are there, I actually read the article.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do a little
Yeah.
study there.
Yeah.
But I would eliminate the Navigate one, because I read it.
Well, no,
has
what I
nothing
said
to
is
do
that
with-
they're saying they don't want screens around their children. They don't want
because of the
technology
addic-
around their
Because of
children.
the addictive nature of it, nothing to do with radiation.
Did you know that that radiation hits the same receptors in the brain?
That's not the focus of the article,
No.
it's what for.
Fair, that's fair, that's fair. But go on the back of my business card, that's where my research repository is, and you can actually read the science.
Yeah.
And then reach out with any questions. I'm right here in Ashland.
Well, folks, we thank you for, we're not trying to kick you out if you want to hang around and
Yeah, it's really-
listen to the elections and
We'd love to have you.
find out what you. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Everyone take care of yourself.
Thank you for coming. Thanks,
Thanks,
appreciate it.
guys.
Appreciate you so presenting.
This whole thing is.
Yeah, or you can just.
Okay, next one was, let's see, election of officers, so we skipped that to make sure we had all 5 of us here. As
No,
far as,
wait, you're fired now.
okay, good, yeah, I didn't behave well on that one. So,
I'd like to nominate Bob Holland,
for what?
lifetime chairman.
Second, okay, all in favor of Bob Holland for for chair?
Aye.
All right. Okay. And
So it was Tony, and who seconded that? Kelly. Vice chair.
But any nominations for vice chair?
We have a vice chair?
Well, we had somebody was an
You have to
assistant.
stand in for Bob if you
Well,
can't make
I
the
can't
meeting.
make the meeting. I thought you were there.
I'm happy to do that, sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know I wasn't.
It's Mike, it's Mr. Raffolo. I would nominate Mr. Raffolo.
I'm gonna add that to my resume.
Excellent job.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then secretary, I'll nominate Mr. Trippy, for unless you're getting tired of all that handwriting you have to do.
That's all right, that's only handwriting.
Okay, second? Second on that? Kelly, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think that handles that. Okay, so the next item is review and consider SELCO Commission meeting calendar. So, meeting calendar is probably gonna need some revision.
Why?
Yeah, let's start
Oh,
with
the-
Monday,
the
October
proposed.
21st. Bob tells me that's a special town meeting night.
Huh?
So I suggest 2
21st
options.
is, yeah, some,
We could meet at 5 o'clock and get pizza and a salad, Maria,
What day?
that's on the 21st. Or we
Of
could meet on
October.
the 28th.
I could do the 28th.
Either or for me.
Okay, let's do it.
28th?
Okay, Kelly?
Going once, going twice?
Mike, 28th, okay?
Oh,
28 October?
just if somebody could send calendar invites, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yes,
So my
okay.
other
Is that okay?
constraint is that for like the next 8 weeks if Ed's out of town, I gotta pick Lila up and have some like 8:30. But so far, he's not traveling.
Yeah.
I'm just, it's gonna be so it's not very offensive.
Okay. But okay, how about the Monday, November 25th, 7 PM? That's budget, that's the initiative to get the budget out early and start getting on that. And
Yeah, so it's my intent and Mike's intent to get the budget done before the year,
Right.
the new year, calendar year begins, so.
Now-
We're optimistically looking at the first week in December.
I will assume that Thanksgiving is the 28th, so that would be
Yes.
Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
Can't go any later than that, we leave on Tuesday night.
On the 25th you can go.
Okay, so make sure your bags are packed before you come to the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Then
that's
December 2nd, that's Monday, December 2nd, that's review the electric budget and the cable budget.
Make it the 16th.
Yeah,
Right.
we
changed
changed
that
it
to the
earlier, yeah.
I'm
Okay.
good with everything until June.
Any
I
other
was just
problems?
thinking June.
Okay, Tuesday, December 3rd was gonna be a
If
9
needed.
AM if needed. Well, I think we, based on last year's performance, we should be able to get through both of
Yeah.
those in the same
But we'll
night.
keep it just.
Keep it just in
You should
case.
have it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we've gone over.
Okay, now, it says in January, either Monday the 13th or the 27th of
Now,
January.
I put the 13th because we would be meeting in the beginning of December, and to go to the 27th is almost 2 months. That's why I kind of
No.
squeezed it in there on the 13th.
So the 6th was another one that you changed.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the-
so we got rid of the January budget meeting.
Okay, so the
So the
13th or the
13th.
20th or the 27th?
I didn't either.
Either. Anybody have any issues with any of those, either one of those dates?
Let's
If
go with
not,
the 13th.
let's go to 13th. Okay, Monday the 24th, which is school vacation, is the 17th through the 21st, so we would assume that folks might be back from Sojourn on the 24th. Would that work?
Sojourn are we doing?
I don't know, where you traveling this
Wherever
year?
you go, wherever
You
you
going to
go.
Egypt or Japan? Or-
Yeah.
My daughter's going to the rugby
She's-
world championships in October.
Kate's
We're watching
going
the grandkids.
South,
Where
we
are they?
think Kate's going to South
Yeah.
Korea.
Huh?
South Korea, she wants to study there, so we may all go there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So the 24th?
But it'll be.
I was formerly employed in South Korea, Kentucky.
Bring her.
Did work over there, so. Anyways, okay, so what did we decide, the 24th of February is fine?
24th of February.
Okay, Monday, the 23rd of March. Can't do that today.
Oh, Tuesday.
Okay, and any,
So
let's,
we're good
for now,
with
let's,
the 24th?
let's do the 24th.
Perfect.
You're gonna send out some of these.
Yep.
to me.
No,
And
no,
then
it's
for
gonna-
Mike's suggestion, I'll send out
As
the
I said.
calendar.
If you don't show, we're calling you.
If I get a calendar invite, I almost always show up.
Okay.
Without a calendar invite, I'm like a
You're
lost
really
dog.
decisive, like-
Okay, so
Yeah,
then,
no,
the 27th of Monday, the 27th
That's
of
a little
April.
peak.
Again, the school vacation is the 20th through the 24th. That would be the presentation of the annual audits that team that comes in and ad nauseum, I'm sorry.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if anyone needed an extra
27th,
day to
you said?
recover from school vacation. if they're
Okay, then Tuesday, the 26th of May, I will make assumption that Memorial Day is the 25th.
Correct.
Is it good or something?
Okay.
It's an audit that night.
Okay, and then Monday, the June 22nd, the all-important review of the salary plan.
Not good, Kelly? Did you say?
No, my only thing was June, if we could put earlier,
Oh, you want to-
because I don't know what my plan, you know what
School gets out and everybody bags it.
I mean? Yeah.
Want to do it the week before? Well, we can
I can't do
decide
it,
as we
I
get
can't do
closer.
the 15th, but if you want to do it the 16th, or do Tuesday the 16th, we can do that.
I'd prefer to stay on Monday, just so we have some consistency. I always know I not to book a Monday night.
It's not, I mean, so really it's just,
Let's
kind
keep,
of prohibits you.
let's keep it at the 27th for now.
And then if we have to, Kelly, as it approaches, we can.
Yeah.
People can also brief you ahead of time too, so.
Yeah,
Well, you can call in.
exactly.
I know that there's nothing better to do.
No, that sounds fantastic.
Okay, so that's that. Okay, let's see. The next thing is review, consider bill schedules, everything going around, everyone's signing those bad boys.
Just-
Meeting minutes of the 24th of June of 2019, is there any comments, or do I have a motion to accept the minutes of June 24th?
I have no comment.
I know that's.
No comments? Okay.
To sign,
I will, I move that we accept the minutes of June 24th.
Wait, am I still the acting clerk though?
For that,
No,
yeah.
you're the
Oh,
vice
for-
chair.
for
I just
that.
lost that job?
Well-
No, for that,
For that one, you guys,
Oh, for this one?
just that.
because you were.
So all in favor of accepting the minutes of June 24th?
I-
Okay, sign that. Okay, then we had the review and consider electric cash statements, August 2019.
Okay, cash receipts through the month of August. Receipts of $900,000, or 8% greater than 2018, and about 4% ahead of projection. On the expenditure side, total year-to-date cash expenditures of 25.7 mils, 4% greater than 2018, and 4% less than the budget. That leaves available funds. The balance there is 6% more than 2018 and 21% greater than projected. Any questions on the details now or?
What's the town suspended the municipal contract at 232? Because you've been having problems?
The town had problems with the Munis, the financial software package.
Yeah.
Their bills flow through us as the IT
Yeah.
provider, and they've renegotiated the contract with them that pushed the bill that was due in the spring of this year out to August. So they haven't paid it yet.
They haven't been billed yet.
Yeah, they haven't been billed, so.
Normally it would have been cashed out.
I know. But it hasn't.
But there will be a bill?
Yes, there
Yes, there will be.
Yes.
You're exactly right. You're doing a great job.
Also, Maria, by moving it to August, there was overlap so that they were paying two bills in their same fiscal year, which goes July 1 to June 30th. So by pushing this out to August, it will now only be one bill
Oh, all right.
from a cash flow.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the August electric cash statement? None? You need a motion to accept, or we just kind of move on? Yeah, we just go ahead.
Accept them all at once.
Yeah, let's accept them all. Okay. The next one is electric financial statement, June 19th.
Yes, over the first 6 months.
Oh, I have one more question.
Okay.
The retirement plan, I know, did we ever get an answer on that?
For the OPEB?
Yeah.
The splitting out?
Well, the
Yeah.
OPEB is for the future post-retirement benefits or health insurance. And so I worked it out with the town treasurer and the town accountant that our investments are held at Bartholomew Company in Worcester, and the funds are commingled. They will establish a separate fund for SELCO electric and cable separate from the town, but they'll be invested jointly, just on the books
Okay,
separately.
so there'll be a separate, so then will we?
Starting January 1st.
Okay, so what are we doing about our contributions there?
We're staying on the actuarial.
We're going to do that, or I presented a schedule to
Yeah.
be fully funded. So we moved to that on a stand.
Okay, but that will be not until January, so there won't be any contribution.
I'd have to revisit that,
I
Maria.
mean, I
but
can make the usual contribution that we made, but that was, why we jumped to the credit.
Now, become 1
To
January,
accelerate
will they split out monies we've already given?
Yes.
And show us that
Yeah,
that's the
we get a
pool?
re- we
So
get
it's
a
not like we
report
only-
now,
only
it's only-
starts January
yeah.
3rd. So that will be definitely split out, so we'll know exactly who we're
I guess it sounds like it would be a different account number.
Yeah, well,
But we get split reporting.
Okay.
Anyway. So does that eliminate the need for the statement that they want?
The question was, do we contribute if it's not?
according to the town's auditor, they
Yeah,
have no
yeah,
right to touch
but
it.
we want to be funded, if we're gonna contribute, but it's not gonna be funded.
Yeah.
Because everybody else isn't funded.
I know we had the initiative that we wanted to fund and get on the schedule.
Yeah.
We've done a good job with that. Is the town in sync with that, or is the town's not?
They're much further behind,
Yeah.
although, on a general basis, but I think their utilities are pre-funding more than their general company. So the water, the enterprise funds, the water and sewer may have, not near as us, because
We said water and sewer employees, different departments have different.
Yeah,
funding.
correct.
So departments.
Or
can
funding
decide-
sources.
So different departments decide how.
No, it's all under one, but they have the ability to raise additional revenue under water and sewer that they can't under general company.
And then, are we talking about that 20 years from now, they're terribly underfunded, we're fully funded, our employees get?
You're going to get on us.
Well, that's a great question. It's very difficult to answer because you don't know 20 years from now if there'll be some other type of health insurance. There could be universal health insurance.
Yes, sure.
There could be no health insurance for retirees. We don't know. That's why I thought that you wanted the funds separated so that in that case, the money would be returned to the ratepayers if it
Right.
weren't needed for that
That
benefit.
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, that's why I segregated.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so, how about the electrical
Financial statements through quarter 2. Kilowatt hour sales through June, 1.7% less than budget projections and 2.4% less than 2018. The revenue billed through that period of time was even with both budget and 2018. Total operating expenses through the first quarter, 3.2% less than 2018 and 9.5% below projection. The other income deductions, about 67,000 less than 2018 and 143,000 less than projection. Interest on long-term debt is about 134,000 greater than 2018 because of the new debt with the Sept solar fund. The result includes depreciation expense of about 955,000. Shows net income of 955,720 through June. That can be compared to net income of 659,000 for the same period in 2018. And actually, the projection that we had showed a budgeted loss through the first 6 months of 362,000.
Which we don't longer have a projected loss.
Yeah. So dip down through mid-year.
What was the 889,000 the drive for the labor administrative and adjustment? Why did it higher by 189,000? In admin expenses. It's the last line in the operating expenses.
I want to say that through the first quarter, we had lower than anticipated outside services, maintenance contracts, and that kind of thing, and the insurance, things like that.
Any other comments? Otherwise, let's go to the cable cash statement for August.
Cash receipts for cable, 31, were 14.5 million. That's about 7% greater than 2018 and even with forecast. Expenditures overall were 11.1 million, 4% greater than 2018 and even with the same period budgeted expenses. Other plant investment there, ISP digital upgrade expenditures running about 252,000 less than 2018. 287 under budget. Significant expenditures included 52,000 for inventory and 116,000 for head-end and digital equipment. Total available funds at the end of the year are actually about 43% better than 2018 and a point ahead of
The point being
forecast.
1%?
Yes.
Next.
Cable financial statements through the second quarter of 2019. We showed total operating revenues around about even with both budget and 2018. Operating expenses about 2% or 166,000 less than budgeted for the quarter and even with 2018. That leaves us with net income of 2.5 mil at the end of June. That's $82.7 thousand, less than net income through the same period of 2018, and even with the forecasted year-to-date net income of 2.5 million.
Okay, so overall, cable is actually making more money than the grand scheme of things than I thought we would.
Until we build the fiber plant. And then it all goes away.
Okay, so we have those four, the two cable and two electrical. We have a motion to accept the reports. I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. The next issue is the review and consider ratifying the town, school, and SELCO telephone upgrade. And also,
Well, we better ratify it. It's already done, right?
You know, it's, the equipment's been ordered, and it's set to be deployed, we hope, over the weekend of Veterans Day, so that we have an extra day, if need be, for the installation on that Monday. So, it's a shared project, $150,000, and you know, it speaks to the cooperation amongst the school, town, and SELCO to save costs through aggregating technology.
But we're not paying the entire fleet.
SELCO's share of the 150 will be $26,100.
But I can.
Not in the past. I'm not the sugar daddy for that. Those phones are.
That sounds like a much better.
So the front one.
Yeah, the front. But they'll pay us this year for this, and there's no repayment over 3 years.
Are we, besides the telephone upgrade, does this include additional phone lines for anybody, or?
At this time, no, but we may reassess that. So at this time, we don't think so, but we may have to, from a capacity perspective. There are, I believe, could be wrong, but 32 lines that can be simultaneously used amongst all the departments on an outgoing basis. So it's never really been an issue, but we'll see.
Okay, review and consider approval of the CATV.
No, we have to
Oh,
vote
no,
on
sorry,
it?
we're ratifying, consider ratifying. We have a motion to ratify. Okay, I'll second that. All in favor of accepting the plan for telephone upgrade as proposed?
Aye.
Okay. Review and consider approval, CATV non-budgeted item request, fiber module.
I would defer to Joelle to give you a very brief explanation of why this is happening.
I'll try to be brief.
No, fiber to the premises started as a proof of concept. And it started in 2015. A few years have passed by. We have learned how to do fiber to the premises, SPACs actually. The entire Lakeway commons have been built in using the fiber technology. However, our billing system is not designed to manage the fiber functionality. So we've been doing a lot of a cumbersome way to activate the products. So a lot of the time the girls spend minutes, or sometimes the installers spend more than they should. And the reason for it is our billing system needs to be upgraded. So we are requesting, we actually, it's a funny story because we budget the module in 2017 and 2018, and we never pulled the plug because we felt we were not ready, and the year we didn't budget for it. Now
Then
we
he'll
need
cut
it.
it.
Now we need it. We only have 400 customers, and we feel that if we're gonna go into a whole town deployment, we need to have the proper solution. And being our immediate roadblock, the billing system not being
Up to date.
So this is a better module than the old one that you were gonna buy?
No, it's actually the same module. It's the same module.
If you knew it.
It's just we're further along, so the time has come. We could wait till January, Tony, but we'd like to do it now.
And it has the scale for,
Yeah, with a handle on it.
So, review and consider approval. Do we motion to approve?
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Okay. Review and consider approval of the operating brief.
I have a few items.
Is brief the operating term? No.
Just a few items to discuss. One, on the statistically, internet sales, we had a nice bump from August to September 1st, up 60. That's probably the highest percentage increase so far this year. We also added 102 wireless customers in the last month as well. So on the internet
So you
side.
know anything, the internet had anything to do with like Lakeway Commons, like students reporting for schools, UMass or anything like that? Did we target where there's?
I
I
mean,
don't know if I understand.
we have seen an uptick actually on installs in the last month, even on the video side of things. I mean, we've been
Just across the
busy,
town, it doesn't make any
across the
difference.
town,
Okay,
across the town.
so it's not just an influx of
Yeah,
students.
no, exactly.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The
Yeah, I can't put my finger on why there has been an increase, but we're accommodating it. So, on the general manager report, I gave you an update on the issues with the fiber project. You know, I'd really like to rip and replace the cable plant over a 1 to 2 year period. We're finding that it's not going to happen because of the video challenges we face and the multi-million dollars that you have to put into a video solution that would work over fiber, and then you don't know whether video is going to be a product we offer in 5 years with streaming. So is it worth that mad push and the extra millions to do it? So we've kind of scaled back. We're going to continue to do it. We've built out the infrastructure for 4 of the 64 nodes. That doesn't include the drops. But by year end, we will have built out four nodes plus the Lakeway Commons. So 5 nodes. We did it ourselves with our own staff. We just haven't done the drops yet. And we've spread that out around town, primarily based on where there's high bandwidth use, so that we can get those users off of the HFC plant or the legacy plant, put them on fiber, thus extending the life of the HFC plant. For those who don't go to fiber, they'll have less bandwidth to share with those in the node. That said, Joel and I have been meeting with both an engineering design person, and their firm does design build, and we hope to get a design going shortly for another 15 to 20 nodes in 2020, and have potentially someone come in and assist with us, because at the rate we're going with our own staff, it would take 15 years at 4 years. So we need some outside resources to step this up. So we will be doing that again based on where the high demand is. And that presentation will be made to you as part of the budget process in December. A couple other things. We had an interesting request to participate in a program that both the American Public Power Association and NEPA, New England Regional Association, in conjunction with the Navajo Nation in the or in the southwest part of the country. There are many people who live out there on the reservation who've never seen electricity in their life. And so the American Public Power Association has been working in collaboration with them to bring different public powers out for a week or 2 at a time to assist in the development of electricity to those residents who live within that nation. Last year, well actually in this current year, 2019, 4 Massachusetts utilities sent line crews out there, and it was very well received. So before I discuss this with, I've broached the subject with our line utility crews, I wanted to seek input from the commission as to whether or not this is something you see as a viable project. So far, close to half of the 41 municipal electric utilities in Massachusetts have expressed interest in going in 2020 between the months of April through June. And what we would be responsible for is providing the travel expenses for our line staff who go, as well as their weekly wage that they would get.
No trucks, right?
No, well, they're asking for trucks, but we wouldn't obviously send trucks because it would take just.
Is our insurance covering this, like,
That's what we were trying to work with.
my worry would be, they got injured on the job on an issue, this is a federal something, or it's its own territory. Is there any exclusion or insurance? That would be my only worry, injury and things.
The four that went this year, their insurance covered it. I haven't checked that, Mike, although I discussed that with Bob, that I would follow up with that if it's
I would need
something that we would.
clear assurances that.
Oh, no, we would do that. I just, I want to see if there was a flavor.
Well, I wonder if there's also any sort of, for lack of better words, behavioral laws that are in place in the Navajo Nation, i.e. Is it a sovereign nation
Yeah.
thing? You know, are there certain behavior things that they can't go out and drink or they can't do with the following? I mean, that they'd have to understand before they went so that they don't get themselves across the breakers with.
Some kind of education.
Yeah, they have, that's excellent. I know from a training perspective, they show up on the Sunday before and there's a 3-hour training on the customs and that. But I think, to your point, we should get some of that in advance of Sunday.
Yeah, if there's some lessons learned, that sort of thing.
I think they would sleep very well if there's no.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a long cord.
the crews really liked it who went this past year, so I think it's a nice.
But straight time is not
opportunity.
overtime, it's.
It's straight time for the hours worked during straight time.
So services then after the installed.
But they have in the materials I sent you, they have a utility organization called NTUA that services electric, water, wastewater, gas, and renewable energy. And they'd like to add communications, internet, cell phone, and data storage devices over time. So, yeah, it's in the New Mexico region. So you would fly into Santa Fe and it's a 180-mile drive from there.
What I felt bad about is you send them out on a Monday or something, a Sunday, and they have to come home on Thursday, now you get to experience.
Well, they go on Saturday, and so, and then they have a night themselves. And then on Sunday afternoon, they get to training and they work Monday through Thursday. Some stay for 2 weeks, Mike. In the other utilities, they sent two-man crews that met each other at the airport on the Saturday and switched the truck that they rented to get to. So some have stayed 2 weeks and worked for 2 weeks.
I guess that's not my point. I guess my point is, they're already there in New Mexico. There's some beautiful sites there, and you're flying them back on a Thursday.
Well, they would
Like
they could
they're
stay
like-
on their own time,
Yeah.
and we'd still pay
Pay
to fly
their
them
Sunday or
home.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to be sure that it's a little more flexible.
Right, did you take the
Like,
Friday?
kind of you go all the way out
Yeah.
there for 4
That,
days.
that next weekend, they could stay if they wanted to.
I'd be willing to pay for their hotel room until such time as they come back. I don't want to pay them kind of on work.
Yeah.
Some kind of, they have to be.
Well, then because of extra benefit to those guys.
Because they're gonna fly back and then have to be, we're expecting to be back on the job on Monday morning here.
Yeah.
How many are going?
Well, we haven't approached it, I just put a floater out there, but I would think from Massachusetts, you would see 60 to 80 line staff who may
How
go.
long do we think that project will take, or is it?
Years.
That's,
Years.
so I'm all in support of that. Is there anything closer to home that we should be?
Well, from a mutual aid perspective, this is kind of a one-off.
Yeah.
From a mutual aid perspective, we obviously, we help each other out. Some line crews from Massachusetts have gone as far as Florida and the British Virgin Islands. I'm a little reluctant. I told the line crews that I'm willing to send them on requests where they can get back with our line truck within a day. So I kind of do the mid-Atlantic out to Ohio region if we're requested, which gives them opportunities for a lot of overtime. But I want them, our primary is to service our community.
Right.
It's good to help out others because we want the help when we need it. We had it in the ice storm. But I'm reluctant at this time to go as far as flying.
What are we seeing about the Bahamas? I mean, it's actually.
I'm not aware
Place
of
got
any
leveled.
Massachusetts utilities that have, I could be wrong. John, do you know of any? Massachusetts.
Nothing yet.
And like, how did Puerto Rico did that?
Some, I don't know. I know that APPA sent people to Puerto Rico. Did NEPA?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take it, I mean, it's something you can go forward and pulse your folks and see what the plan is, but before they go, we kind of like to have a little more of the background and what the liabilities are, not only for us, but also for the individuals that go.
And I also put in there that, you know, obviously I'm interested in stepping up training in 2020, and so there's a paragraph in there on a consultant who I found to be very interesting. And Ralph and I spent a good half a day picking his brain. He was very good, so I hope to retain him for 2020 and work also with Kevin, the town manager, to coordinate some joint trainings for both of our staffs. In terms of the AMI meter project, we have picked a vendor to proceed. That vendor is Itron. It's the current vendor. It'll dovetail nicely because the water department has that as well, and there could be some synergies. It's not the reason we picked them, but it's an added value.
Do you know if they have hotspots?
Do we know if they have hotspots?
In a special meeting earlier today, are we aware if there are any other?
Oh, no, that would be in the hotspots are more for the wireless routers, not the meters.
I thought they said they were putting
No,
in
there's-
later, that they would put them in.
Yeah, they could get in the pipes and go through the house.
Could
and
we
make
just
a change.
confirm
Yeah,
if
just
you
have-
do not have?
Oh, yeah,
hotspots
well, we
in
could
them?
Just
confirm.
get some, and also, what's the overall cost for this new meter effort?
Well, it depends on whether we do it ourselves, Bob, or hire an outside firm. So we have a price for the meters and the software that is good. But we're going to do a beta test of 250 to 300 with our own staff. From that, we'll determine whether or not we want to do the whole town over a 3-year period with our own staff, or hire an outside firm to do it. So it depends on which way we decide to go after the beta test. But on the upside, it's $3 million plus. And the primary benefit is not to have remote.
$3 million plus, $3 million plus if we do it ourselves.
No, it'd be less than that if we did it ourselves. Depending on we do it during the day or overtime, about those.
Is this required going into any houses, or is this just working into the outside meters that?
Well, it requires going into apartment complexes where they have meter rooms, but for most houses, it's on the outside. 90%,
I don't
Sean?
believe we have any inside meters since the last deployment.
On single-family
But
homes.
there are some businesses that still have meters inside, basements and meter rooms, vaults.
Right now, people, there's a meter and they actually have to go on the property and read the meter.
No.
Really?
In 15 years ago, they had to go on the property and read the meter and write
I've
it
never
down.
seen
in
anyone
pencil.
walking, that's the thing.
So now we have a little SUV, and the woman who's the meter foreman, she drives around, and she has a device that captures all of.
Already doing.
Yeah.
Looks
So
like
the current meters are already read through an RF frequency.
Yeah.
So this is not much of a change from that perspective, except, as I understand it from our consultant, that they would pulse less frequently in the advanced meter.
One of the arguments we had before when we were looking at electric cars was the fact that for the meter reader was that there wasn't enough power in the battery for the electric car to handle the machine that they use to pulse the meters. Is there some gain to be had on these new meters, less power, and maybe we can think about using a solar-powered car to drive around and do it? I mean, not just from the political side, but also just.
Well, we won't need to drive around anymore.
This is what? Oh, it's
No,
not
they'll
captured.
be remotely captured.
It's a fixed network.
To
Is
fix
it through our cable or through the?
through devices pole mounted in 4 or 5 locations in town. So we no longer need to drive to get the RF signal.
And the locations would be like utility poles or
Yeah.
like public?
Could be on a utility pole, could be on a cell tower if there was a space.
or at a substation.
Yeah.
How big is the antenna?
They're not that big. They're 40 feet, they're not,
Riddle me a height. What's not so big?
4 feet.
Because they're embedded.
Huh?
It's one unit, it's one cabinet, and the antennas are inside that
Yeah.
cabinet.
Shorter
But
than you.
they're like that size, like the size of
How does it work now? Like when you say it's remote, like what's going on now?
I would defer to the engineers to answer those better than me.
that. What was the question?
How does it work now? Like,
Right now-
There's no we're not on the utility.
right,
plan.
there's a radio receiver we have one mounted in one of our SUVs. And in that SUV is what they call a GoBook, but it's a very durable laptop. You can.
So you have to drive it in as you.
So, and that meters are continuously sending that read out. As you drive by, it's just collecting that data
Oh, shit.
as you drive by.
So it's constantly sending, as
Interesting.
opposed to a fixed.
Whereas we'd have 5 antennas around town.
Here, we're just
pulse
pushing a
ones.
button and go.
Yeah, I think that's.
Right, so the
I don't think
newer
it makes that
technology allows
Well,
you
it
to
does on
say,
that thing.
the newer technology allows you to tell the meter, only send the signal every 4 hours or twice a day. Because it stores the data, they're collecting all the data, but you don't have to continually send it out. Because right now, the meters don't know when you're driving by,
Right.
so they have to just keep sending it.
There's no way to trigger it as you're going by.
The water department does that, the electric ones don't. The water department, because they run on battery, that's the technology they use. As you're driving by, you're sending the pulse. The electric meters don't work that way. They're continually sending that.
Just think they're already cutting down on radiation.
And I think the important thing to note about AMI is that, you know, when I first started in this position, I thought it was just a means of reading meters more efficiently and effectively. That's really that's an added benefit. The real benefit is in the engineering and what Jonathan and Ralph will be able to do to better have greater efficiency in the load. It's good. It's better in outage management. You know every home,
Right.
who's on, who's out. It's a safety feature for the guys to know what homes are energized and what aren't energized. And if the industry ever goes towards time of use billing, this meter will allow for that. And there's a lot of push in certain communities to go for time of use billing to create greater efficiencies, especially from those in the environmental community who want to see people who are using it during peak times to cut back. So this AMI meter is the gate, is the conduit to allow that to happen in the future. It's nothing we promote now, but if the industry goes that way, with more renewable technology coming on, then we would be ready for that.
Yeah.
And it also goes without saying that we have to replace our meters anyway.
You were saying that.
Mike, I just wanted to mention about the question of the hotspot. I believe that's the solution that Verizon was offering.
Oh, yeah, they can read them. Verizon has a solution where they put in a chip and you pay them $2 or $3 a month to read them over a cellular network. And they would put up antennas through their 5G network and you'd read them that way.
Huh.
But if you look at it, $3 per month
There's a chip in my neck.
times 30, that'd be $36 a year per
Wow.
home
Oh, yeah,
times
that's
15,000.
nutty.
That's crazy.
You're
What is
you're
this meter?
upwards of $400,000 to $500,000 for that
Yeah.
on an annual operating expense. It makes no
Okay.
sense to me.
What is this costing us?
Could cost us anywhere between 2.5 to 3.4 million is our.
Once we roll it all out?
Yeah.
How long, what period of time would you roll it?
Well, we hope to roll it out over a 3-year period.
But you need to compare it, it's an incremental replacement of the existing.
Correct.
We have to
You'd
replace
still
it
have
anyway.
You'd still have the labor cost to replace all the existing.
Right, so
Plus
when
the
you say
cost
3
of.
million, I mean, I would
Yeah.
caveat that by saying it's really.
Yeah.
What's
And we
the
could get that
increment?
figure from the vendor in terms of what it would be to replace them with AMR meters.
Yeah, just
These. But the existing meters have reached their shelf life, is the idea?
Yeah, we're continually replacing failed meters, so it happens, since they don't store data, when you go out, since you read monthly, if the meter fails the day after you've read it,
Never
you
happened
go.
to me.
What's that?
Never happened to me, but okay.
Well, it has happened, you know, the problem is you don't know when it failed. So you read the meter on a Tuesday, it's 30 days later, you're gonna go and read that meter again when you
Yeah.
drive by, there's no reading. The meter failed somewhere between the last time you read it and the present time, so now you're estimating what that read was, because there's no way that you have that information. These meters will allow you to get the information daily, so if the meter should fail, the most you have is 1 day of estimation.
What's really intriguing is the load efficiency, because that's a yet different initiative when it comes to
Yeah.
energy, green
Yeah.
energy idea concepts.
And that gives the Huntington and his staff a lot of valuable information as they
Right.
redesign the circuits and the transformers.
So is the objective for this evening's conversation?
He's just giving us a brief back.
This is
Just
part
a
of the,
background on where we are on the bid, so we have selected a
So
vendor.
no vote then?
After, no, it doesn't require a vote. We had 10 proposals, and Jonathan and Ralph and others in the organization, sometimes IT sat in on them, Joelle sat in on some, and sometimes on occasion Rosanna from the water department sat in to interview some of the vendors. They were whole day interviews, and we ended up selecting one that we're most comfortable with, and they have provided us great service for the last 10 years.
Now,
You had a nice discussion in the operating report about the demand, the video on demand, and where it's headed, and what to put money into, and all that.
Yeah.
I'd like, I don't know if it has to be this meeting, but I'd like to learn and chat more about that
Sure.
next meeting.
You know,
Seems
vid-
like it's a real issue that we have to, it's a policy issue that we have to kind of decide. where we're
Yeah,
headed.
I guess
And
you're
there's
not a
no
real
great
cable
answer.
operator if you don't have video on demand.
Yeah.
But there's two kinds of video on demand. There's movies you rent, like a new movie feature that comes out that you might
Yeah.
want to get. And there's competition for that. You can get that streamed through multiple services. But the other video on demand is the library of programs that you may or may not watch regularly. And so
That's huge.
our storage has run out. And so we don't have a lot of capacity left. So if we're gonna stay in this game for a couple more years, which, I mean, the current platform that we use, I think we need to buy some more storage to keep that product rolling until such time as the full streaming solution becomes the most viable. Or that's where the industry goes, and on that, in that case, you would, all of those programs are in libraries in those big data storage
Wow.
clouds. And you would access them cloud-based.
Yeah.
But
Can't do
I'm
that
very
now?
fearful, we could,
Just switch.
Tony, but I'm very
Well,
fearful under the HFC plant that if we're all cloud-based, and everyone's streaming with 5 different shows on in one house, without fiber, that makes it very difficult.
Yeah, that makes it too.
So you're constantly faced with different challenges and to get over that hurdle of the next generation of cable plant.
How popular is the movie on demand, pay for movie on demand feature? Is it, I would think that's kind of waning, or?
I could get you statistics on that, but it's significantly
I can
down.
tell you we're paying a minimum.
Yeah, we're paying the
to
minimum to
vendors
keep
right
it.
now.
I mean, is that
It's
something
5,000
maybe of our choices, just eliminate that, or?
We could do that because it's available, but we should mark it where it's available to, for others to stream it. Whereas now it's linear, so it doesn't take the bandwidth that it would be if it were streamed. It's linear through the cable box, so that's not as big a capacity constraint.
As opposed to the,
Download.
going on HBO?
Yes, oh, yeah, on HBO Go or some cloud-based
Copy.
streaming service, Netflix.
Well, how
Well,
about-
not Netflix, because we have a direct relationship
Yeah,
with
with
Netflix.
Can we post maybe for the next meeting that, I heard earlier about this, about, like, the state of Connecticut is about to start taxing things like Netflix and all the online, you know, the apps that are coming together with, I can see Disney Channel.
Disney,
I can see Apple when they come on board, but it's not only,
Hulu.
but there's a potential for a federal tax, a state tax, and potentially for a local, user, for us, for people who actually do that, to the point where, what I had read, and I just New York Times or whatever, but it was talking about the fact that the price could actually go higher than the current cable bills that we're providing when people go and, you know, pick and choose what shows they want, when they want to do that.
It's very interesting, but we can research that. I hadn't heard of that until you told me that today. And I don't know if Joelle's heard it. And I don't know if it's just a proposal or if it's actually something that the state enacted.
I could have sworn Connecticut is setting up to do that.
Okay. But that's easy to look into. But when you think about what you just said, it's everybody wants, everyone demanding everything to be unbundled. So when it becomes unbundled, is the ecosystem going to be that combined everything's more expensive than when it was bundled?
Right.
And it could go back full circle. I don't know. But it's on. I keep the CNBC News on during the day, and there's a lot on that today on how, you know, Apple's new TV product, Netflix, so the price is going to go up. I think Netflix just spent over $500 million to get the rights to Seinfeld to broadcast them. And Viacom bought the rights to Seinfeld to keep them on the linear program away from Turner Broadcasting today. So there's all these deals being cut.
Netflix alone can quadruple their monthly income just by not allowing me to have all of my daughters on my same account across the country.
But that's legal.
You know, it is now, but it may, if they do away with it and have you individually have to, you know, each account.
YouTube does it.
Huh?
YouTube does it. Like, for example, if I have a YouTube Red, I cannot share with someone outside of Massachusetts.
They already do it.
Out of state?
Yep.
But I'm
I
telling
think we
you,
should create Netflix
the
families.
recommended movies I get from Netflix do not match my.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I watch a lot of anime.
To finish with the operating brief, I just remind you that this weekend is Fair Shrewsbury. Will you be there, Marie? Okay. And we also have our Lightweight businesses. And we also have a customer service survey. I don't know if any of you have received it.
No.
But, via the phone and some internet. For electric only, I decided this year to separate them because I think a lot of our customers got confused when they were doing cable and electric on the same. So in November, we will do a separate one for the cable.
It was a pretty long survey.
Yeah.
How did you know to answer the phone? It wasn't some spoofed address?
That was on the phone? You got a phone call?
Yeah, they said we didn't do it.
They're like,
I
hello?
thought maybe they'd be like 5 or 10 minutes. My God, went off for like 20 minutes.
Really?
That was
Every
just,
month.
that was just electric.
That was just a.
You weren't holding the cell phone to your head, were you?
No.
Okay.
So that's it for the operating brief, unless you have other questions.
No, just the thing
You
about.
put it on
All right, yeah, that's right.
Did you ever see the flywheel storage thing over in Boylston?
West Boylston?
Yeah. Is it what?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, just like, I sent me something to the heat over.
I did talk to Emwick financial people about it. Ralph and I had a meeting with them, Jonathan came last week, and they said it's volumes and volumes of paperwork for so little benefit from the project that they're doing. But they're general managers and engineers, very interested in that kind of stuff. So I do want to see.
Over something.
I do want to see it.
A high-speed flywheel. I'm trying to get them up on the phone.
It produces very little.
It's not that, yeah.
But it's a concept, it's a proven concept they got a grant to do, so.
Yeah, they got grant.
I'll take you over if you want to see it.
Yeah.
So, anyone else who wants to see it, so. Yeah, that's that. And the other thing was, Bob, was the letter from the resident on the.
Yeah, we have.
Oh,
Everybody read that,
yeah.
Yeah.
thing about solar, about the charges and stuff?
Yeah.
And I think we've had we did a lot of deep thinking when we first set up the policy, and I don't think we need to change it based on what he's asking.
We asked a lot of questions
Yeah.
on the fairness
Yeah.
of that amount, at least at the time with that consultant.
You know, at the time when that consultant did his study, I think it was in the $4.50 to $5 range on what the fixed cost should be for a customer, just to build and maintain the plant for every customer. And we set it at about 50 to 60% of what that was, at $2.50 per kW. In addition, I think in response that, in talking with Ralph, we give full net metered credits. We don't pay, a lot of systems pay just the wholesale power cost for the generation. That we give full, instead of the 8 cents, we give the full 11.5 cents.
So when we get it, they're giving it back,
We're paying a retail rate, not a wholesale rate, so they're getting a much higher.
Yeah, and we're not charging them for the transmission costs or anything like that, right? They're getting the full benefit.
Correct.
So he missed that point, because he may be getting credits
Yeah.
each month, but he's not including that at all in his analysis.
And I'll let Ralph speak for 30 seconds on, his other thought is that once we have AMI, we could establish a program where we have a demand charge on residential customers, and he could explain what that is better to you. Our commercial accounts have a demand charge.
Yeah, the plant has to be built just like, the simple way I would explain it is, if you buy a dump truck, that dump truck has to have an engine capable of going uphill with a full load. You don't need it all the time, but you have to pay for the maintenance and the fuel cost for that engine all the time, whether you're fully loaded or not. Electric system is similar in that it has to be capable of providing the peak demand at any time when you don't know what might occur. And because metering hasn't advanced until now, where you can bill a customer on demand except for the high expensive, high-end three-phase meters that we use for industrial commercial customers, we never billed a residential customer on demand. But to be equitable, that customer should be paying what his share is to run the plant. And so that would be a demand meter. Some customers would pay less, some customers would pay more, but they would be paying their fair share to run the plant.
That was one of the options that we had even at that time. We decided to do this.
We didn't have the
fixed.
meters.
Yeah,
to do it.
See, we didn't have a way to measure that demand. Now we
Now we
will.
do, we will.
Well,
Yeah, so we
Well,
could
after
change.
3 years.
We could change at that time.
Yeah.
what about a capacity cap?
Oh, in his letter, Ralph, he mentions a 10,000. I think that's on the size of the,
Right.
how much you can put on your roof.
Because what happens is, if we had several customers that were tied to one transformer, and they used very little, but they were producing a lot, they would overload our transformer in our distribution system. And unless they were willing to pay to upgrade that, then there has to be some, limitation, because now you're taxing the system in the opposite direction. Even though you're not using it, you're now generating, and so the system has to be capable of taking that generation.
Wow.
So,
And that's not gonna change anytime
Well, plus with the
soon.
size of solar, if it's putting out max and all of a sudden the clouds roll in, the surge that's gonna occur based on all those sizes as well.
that's a good point, Bud.
It's gonna put a surge across
Right.
as well with the demand.
And that capacity constraint isn't likely to change anytime soon, so it needs to stay. But I think perhaps one of the challenges we have is not that we're doing anything wrong, is that perhaps we're not communicating why. So in this letter to him, it's a good opportunity to state those things, and maybe do we have something on the website or somewhere where the solar rules, like a little bit more of an explanation for the logic behind the decisions we've made, but very fair reasons.
I don't know if there is anything on the website, Kelly, I'll double check that.
But we're gonna craft.
But our regulations are on there, they may not.
Well,
There may be
like the
more legalese.
understanding that
Yeah.
we appreciate it and we encourage that sort of behavior with the following constraints that we,
Yeah.
can't help.
Well, because there was the key argument was it was costing me for you to get solar, and we
Right.
wanted to.
Yeah, we didn't want to tax the
fix-
neighbors to support your, because you had the wherewithal, the roof, and you clear cut trees down, so that,
Right.
whereas the other ones wanted to keep their trees up.
Right.
So it was rebalancing that, which made sense to me, What percentage are we solar now?
I think, was it 10, residential.
Well, up to 10% residential?
We have the
Up to
capability of,
10% of our-
when the sun is
our
shining
demand.
and they're both putting out, we can meet 10%.
Oh. but
When
I-
the sun
how-
shines.
Yeah, but how many solar customers,
We have,
houses do we have out of?
residential.
80 out of how many, 10,000, 5,000?
We have 12,500 residential, probably have.
So 80 so it's a
about
very
80 to-
small.
80 to 90
Yeah.
residential.
Yeah, this is.
On the roof, but we have 300 solar customers from our solar farm, from the communities.
Oh, I see. They're buying solar
They
power.
wanted, they wanted. it.
Well, then
So-
additionally, we've got what the actual funding that we're doing right now. You said what, we have about 7 more openings for people to put solar on their roof based
Yeah,
on.
it's been a very successful program. I think that's between 5 and 7, depending on the size of the
Yeah.
solar. And if we sell out, I will ask for more money because we budgeted more money on the SELCO side, but the state didn't give us what we got 91 or 93,000, and we asked for 125, and we didn't get our full request.
Yeah. But I think it's fair, it's a fair share, it helps all those, so many of those folks who normally couldn't afford to put it up.
I think it's a great program because it front loads a lot of the cost. So if you did it like in November, you're gonna get your money back from MWEC or SELCO, plus you get the investment tax credit when you do your taxes in January or February. So you're getting your money back rather rapidly if you do it in the fourth quarter of 2019, because we have no idea whether the state will match our subsidy next year.
Okay, anything else?
I have nothing else. Our next meeting is on
28th of
28th.
October, the week after the town meeting.
Yes.
The big things at the town meeting, Bob?
A bunch of different.
I haven't
zoning
seen it.
things.
Yeah. It's zoning?
There's no citizens petitions or anything like that, I
I don't think so.
And then I think there's, I don't know, something about youth and family services is. Well, I was just moving monies.
When'd you say?
Can we adjourn?
I don't know, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to ask you.
What was the date of the next meeting?
Monday the 28th, because the
28th.
town meeting is
The
on.
town meeting.
Yeah.
Are you both town meeting, all three?
Hey, that's right, if we ever did the
No,
electronic
not
voting,
anymore.
I ran once and now I've
if we
watched
do
town
electronic
meeting.
voting, we can't use Wi-Fi, we're gonna have to have wires running all around the,
No?
Yeah, that would be Wi-Fi.
240.
Oh.
You have to get an extension.
It's all about Windows.
I did that for about 10 to 15 years.
You stopped?
I'm not making fun of it.
No, I know, it's a couple of
Just-
hours.
Well, I.
Okay, it is now 20:59 or 8:59. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're out of here.
Aye.